This summer is all about watercolor flowers. There are two ways you can join in the fun. Number one, if you want the basic tutorial, you're here, yay. Follow along with the video, paint your flower with me, and subscribe so you don't miss the other flowers that are coming out every week this summer. Option two, join Painting Through the Seasons, my new course that's all about painting watercolor flowers, but you'll get extra instruction on how to sketch your flowers, how to mix your watercolors, watercolor techniques each week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want that extra guidance, scan the QR code to join me today. Now let's paint some flowers. Okay, we have our Cosmos sketch done. It's time to start painting. I made a big puddle of cerulean blue and a big puddle of opera rose on the right. You can't see it, but it's there because I wanted to try and capture kind of a really light blue violet for these flowers. So that's what I'm mixing to make the flower petals. The center, I'm using yellow ochre. I may end up adding in some cad yellow medium at some point. We'll see. So play around a bit with the cerulean blue and the opera rose and how much you add together to get the color you want. So we're going to play with our graded washes here, which means, well, watch the technique video first. And then basically you're adding dark color in the center on one end. You're rinsing your brush off and pulling the color up with water. You can add more color to the center and it will spread more. And that's going to give us this petal effect in some of the reference photos where it is darker in the center and lighter towards the ends. And so that's why I wanted to show you how to do these graded washes so that we could capture that effect of the flowers. I'm going on every other petal here just so they don't bleed too much into each other because I really want that graded effect to happen, and I didn't want to do the petals right next to each other just in case it would mess it up a little. I really want the petals defined. So go every other petal and then kind of go back to the ones you didn't do in the first round around the flower. So I'm trying to do these graded washes all in one direction so you can see it on the video. I will tell you it's easier if you turn your paper around and pull toward the hand. Like I'm right-handed, so if I put color in the center of the flower, the right-handed petals are easier for me to spread the color out. So feel free to move your paper around as well as you're painting. I do really like that color mix though. I wanted that light blue violet and I captured it pretty well. Other flower while the first flower petals dry a bit, and I'm still going every other. You can see already the petals that are drying. that we are getting that effect I was looking for, where it's darker toward the center and light at the tips. It looks so cool. Gonna paint some of the other tiny like bud flowers while I'm waiting for those to dry as well. And then I can go back in between to do the other petals. So the first flower, it's looking pretty dry. I think it's dry enough to start to add. Actually, I'm gonna do the stems first. So Pearline green, my go-to green for this series, and some cad yellow medium to get a spring green color going on for these stems. I'm adding the base of these flowers, of that flower, to get a little blending going on. And then these stems are so thin, and the leaves are just these little thin, wispy things. So play around with that and which directions they're moving to add some direction and flow to your painting. It's pretty fun. These I like these a lot. Make sure I have my stems coming down too. All right, it's dry enough now. I can start on the other petals in between the ones we've already done. I'm just getting enough paint on my palette again too, so that I can get this color that I'm looking for. So it's just putting your color down and pulling it away with water. That's really all it is. Practice it on a sketchbook page and then do it on your petals. So fun. This flowiness and being able to move the colors like that is one of my favorite things about watercolor, because you can't do that with any other medium. Like, I love acrylic too, but there's just something special about watercolor and what you can do with it. So these two petals were next to each other, so I'm gonna just do it and see what happens. I think if they get a little too muddled, we can redefine them on a later layer. It's looking okay though. You can see I'm playing around even on my palette with this color because I want it to be light, but I also want it to be that perfect blend of blue violet. So I don't want it to be too pink and I don't want it to be too blue. So I do have to play around to get it, and that's fine. Like, take your time to find the color you want if you are looking for something specific. Play around with your color mixes and color blends to try and get what you're looking for. That's part of the fun of learning about color and what color can do as you're mixing it, and really learning about color mixing itself. All right, let's finish up the petals on this other flower. So if you're looking at this, you can see the pencil lines around my petals because my color is so light on this one. And I love that. There's just something special about seeing where you've been and knowing that you get to create on top of it. I just like the idea of that. One more petal. Look at that beautiful graded effect we already have in our big flower on the top. Doesn't that look amazing? All right, it's time to let it dry and we will move on to the next layer. All right, we have layer 2 ready to go. On this layer, I just want to redefine or define some of these petals, get some more color going because you can see how washed out it looks now. I want to make sure my greenery and foliage is nice and dark and pretty to look at. I made a mix of yellow ochre and cadmium yellow medium to add some extra color into my perylene green. I wanted to see what the yellow ochre would do, and it did. It made a really cool, like I like that yellow green that it made, looking really pretty. So that was yeah, the yellow ochre and cad yellow medium in my perylene green. And like I like to do, I'm adding more perylene green at the base and dragging it down those stems. I'm just going to follow the lines that I did already to make them a little darker. I might add in some extra if I feel like it needs it. This is part of where you can get a bit intuitive here because you can just kind of go with the flow and what feels good, then add your petals and your leaves and it's fun. You can already see that that looks so much better with just a little bit of extra color on top of that first layer. It's kind of amazing. Painting in layers is so fun. So we do still have the pretty graded effect on those petals. It's just that it looks a little dull. The effect is really cool, but we need to add more color. So I'm getting my Opera Rose petal and my Cerulean Blue petal ready again so I can mix it to specifically that blue violet color that I wanted to get. And for this layer, I'm gonna add some of deep color marks around the center because it is real dark there. And then I'll probably like spread it out. I'm gonna spread it out with some water to get the grading going again. I don't want to completely cover what I've already done. So I'm gonna try and spread this out pretty light underneath. And so now you can see the first ones that were already just kind of highlighting that graded effect. So we're not covering it, but we are making it even more deep and interesting. And on this layer, you can see I'm not coloring in or I'm not painting in the whole petal. I'm leaving those spaces like when we leave space for highlights to give it some depth because we didn't really leave highlights on the first layer because we were doing that wash. So if you look at the top flower now compared to the flower on the left, you can see that the grading looks so much deeper and more beautiful, and the left one looks a little flat. I'm gonna add some extra color to my petals on the ones that are blooming. Let's get some darker shading on the flower, the blooming flower and the flower on the left. Remember, if your paint is still wet, you can drop in extra color if you want some subtle differences. And now on this flower, let's just do our graded effect again. So you can see I did every other petal on that first layer because I wanted to show you that method. And then on this layer, I went all the way around the center and did it that way. Now you can decide which way you like to do better. That's looking pretty good for our second layer. I think we will let it dry and actually no, I want to add some extra definition to the flower centers. So I'm going to mix some cadmium yellow medium and some yellow ochre to get a golden yellow, and add in some dots because on those reference photos you can kind of see the texture and it looks like little circular bits. And now we can let it dry and then we'll move on to the next layer. For this layer, I just want to add, you can see how it kind of got flat again, right? And so I want to add some more color to define these petals again. I still have my puddle of cerulean blue and opera rose that I'm mixing together on the right to get this blue violet. And this beautiful graded effect. So I don't want to cover it. I just want to emphasize it. And so it can be a little tricky, but you can practice in your sketchbook. I'm adding some deeper shades just to, mimic shadow and light, but I also don't want to hide that graded wash. So we'll see how it turns out. You can see I'm trying to pull color up from there because I can tell already that it's too dark. So I'm just pulling color from there and adding it to petals on some of the other petals. So that turned out pretty good. I got some definition in those petals without losing the graded wash, except for maybe that first petal where I went a little dark. Let's define some of the petals on this blooming flower. Let's see what we can do with our main flower without hiding that graded wash. So I'm using a pretty light color to add some of this definition. So we may need to use paint a couple more layers than we have done on some of the previous flowers, but that's okay because we can do as many layers as we want to get the look that we want. Yeah, this is so light. It's not doing too much, but a little bit, and that's okay. I didn't like how that flower looked like it was floating out of nowhere. I thought the stem coming out the side was what I wanted, but it was bothering me. So I'm adding in this extra stem and defining some of the foliage around these flowers with the dark perylene green. I just love how that dark green adds so much depth. It's such a pretty color. Let's see if I can kind of define these petals a little bit more with some color. Let's see what we can do here. Do you see how that dark green is bleeding into the petal, but it's really strong? I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. All you have to do is get water on your brush and pick up the color with your brush and then wipe it off on a paper towel or something, and then add more water to pick it up, and until it's mostly gone. Usually you can get most of it up. So see, I'm just lifting it gently with water on my brush, wiping my brush off and going back in. And so I got most of it up, and that's one way to fix a mistake, I guess you could call it a mistake. I don't really feel like there are mistakes in painting, but if you don't like it, something like that happening, then use the water technique to lift up that color. So these flowers are still looking a little flat to me, even with the layers we've done. So I'm gonna do one more layer of paint, and then I'll probably move on to final details. But I really like how they're turning out. I just want a little bit more color, especially in those big ones, the big blooms. So I'm starting in the center again. I want to do that graded wash again without hiding the one that we've already done. Remember, I just want to redefine or emphasize the wash that I already have. And so that looks pretty good. I got pretty dark there. I'm going to do every other petal again just to see if that helps. I got pretty dark color toward the center so I can pull it out. That's looking pretty good. I think this layer might be just fine. I think it might be the final layer of paint. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Like you can already see so much more depth on that one compared to the one on the left. So I like that. It needed one more layer for sure. Well, that's already looking so much better. Those flowers just needed something. The blooms or the tiny buds are looking pretty good, but these flowers definitely needed a little extra. The cosmos have pretty strong lines going up their petals, so I'm going to add those in too. Yep, this is looking great. So I'm going to finish this, and then on the final layer, we'll add some marks with our Inktense pencils and some splatter, of course. And then we should have a finished cosmos flower. Okay, so this is dry, and I'm liking it now. The color is deep and beautiful, so it's time to add details. I have my Derwent Inktense pencil again. I have it, this is a denim, I believe. So I'm gonna use that. I don't really have like a lilac color or like a blue violet, so this is the closest one I had. It's called denim. So I'm just gonna add in some more of the lines that you can really see on a cosmos flower. I think that looks so pretty over top the graded effect that we did. I really love how that turned out. Remember to have fun with this step, the detail step. Don't be too afraid to cover over your painting. Just have fun with it. Scribble around. You can see I'm just scribbling with that pencil. I don't really have a plan. I'm just kind of going with it. I'm also going to use my leaf green. Well, I'm going to use my regular pencil and add some scribbles into the center. And then I'll use my leaf green pencil to add some extra detail to the stems and leaves. Also, don't be afraid to show the pencil lines because it adds some texture to your piece. So I even added just some extra petals so you can see the texture. I think that's looking pretty good. So time to add some splatter. I'm gonna do, let's see. I'm gonna do blue violet with splatter first. Actually, no, I'm gonna do the cad yellow. Cad yellow medium and yellow ochre mix. I did that first, and now I'll do the blue violet. That looks really good. Okay, I'm super happy about this one. I would love to see your cosmos flowers. Remember, this is the basic tutorial for the week. This is what you will see every week through the summer unless you join me in painting through the seasons. This course was built to dive deeper into watercolor to help you learn how to sketch your flowers, how to mix your colors, different watercolor techniques every week. And I wanted to do that so that if you like a step-by-step approach and if you want more instruction instead of just painting along with me, then you can, and you have that option. Right now, the course is discounted because I'm adding the flowers as we go. And so after summer's over, the price will jump up. So jump on that discounted price now, and I will see you in there.